The laughter was merciless, echoing through the Silver Ridge courtyard like wolves tasting blood. Maya stood trembling beneath the blood moon, its crimson light painting her white ceremonial gown with the color of shame. 25 years of hope had led to this moment only to shatter like glass at her feet. "Tell them, sister," Vanessa called out, her voice sweet with venom. "Tell them your wolf never answered you." The assembled pack members fell silent, their eyes burning into Maya like brands. Blake, her mate-to-be, took a step away from her. The distance between them stretched wider than mere feet. It was a chasm that could never be crossed again. "Is it true?" Blake asked, his handsome face contorted with disgust. Maya's silence was answer enough. The sacred bond she had anticipated since childhood had failed to materialize. While every other wolf in the pack had felt their inner beast awaken during their coming of age, Maya's spirit remained solitary, unaccompanied by the twin soul all werewolves carried. Blake's jaw tightened. "I cannot mate with a wolf who has no wolf." Those words, spoken with such cold finality, crashed through Maya like a physical blow. She looked up at him. This man she had loved since childhood, now a stranger with winter in his eyes. "The pack must always be strong," Blake continued, his voice carrying across the silent clearing. "I choose Vanessa instead." Vanessa, Maya's twin sister, stepped forward in triumph. Though they shared the same face, the same honey gold hair, the same birth date 25 years ago, they couldn't have been more different. Where Maya was soft-spoken and thoughtful, Vanessa burned with ambition. Where Maya healed, Vanessa conquered. "How noble," Vanessa murmured, sliding her hand into Blake's. At the edge of the clearing, William Rhodes watched with a thunderous expression. At 68 years old, the old veteran had served as the pack's spiritual advisor for decades. His weathered face, marked with the scars of wars, both human and supernatural, betrayed his fury at the scene unfolding before him. The disrespect shown to Maya cut him deeper than any bullet or claw ever had. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd as Blake slid the ceremonial engagement band from Maya's finger. The ancient silver ring, passed down through generations of alpha mates, glinted in the moonlight before disappearing into his pocket. The final rejection. Maya stood motionless, tears streaming silently down her face. The humiliation burned hotter than any physical pain she had ever experienced. The stares of pity, the whispers of defective and incomplete, sliced through her soul. Then something shifted in the air. The wind, which had been gently rustling through the Montana pines surrounding Silver Ridge territory, suddenly died. The blood moon overhead seemed to pulse, throbbing like a living heart. The temperature dropped so rapidly that breath clouded in front of startled faces. "Enough!" That single word rolled through the clearing like distant thunder. Low commanding, laced with a power so ancient it made the oldest wolves present tremble with instinctive submission. The crowd parted like a wave, revealing a figure standing at the entrance to the sacred circle. Dominic Blackwood, the Alpha King, ruler of all werewolf territories in the Northwest, stood tall against the night sky. At 38, he cut an imposing figure, 6.5 feet of pure controlled power. His black hair caught the moonlight, and his eyes burned gold with barely contained fury. Behind him stood George Sullivan, his 72-year-old advisor, watching the scene with the calculated assessment of a man who had witnessed the rise and fall of multiple pack leaders. No one had expected the Alpha King to attend a routine pack ceremony. His presence at Silver Ridge was unprecedented, a living legend suddenly materializing in their midst. Blake instantly dropped Vanessa's hand and bowed his head in deference, though fear flickered across his face. "You think she has no wolf?" Dominic's voice cut through the silence as he strode forward, his gaze locked on Maya. "Then tell me, why does mine want to kneel before her?" The question hung in the air, impossible and electrifying. The pack's collective breath caught. An alpha's wolf kneeled to no one, especially not the wolf of the Alpha King himself. Maya lifted her tear-stained face, meeting Dominic's golden gaze. Something passed between them, a recognition that transcended logic or explanation. For a heartbeat, the world around them ceased to exist. Dominic approached her with the fluid grace of a predator, his presence overwhelming in its intensity. When he stood before her, Maya had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. Despite her fear and confusion, something about him called to her, compelling her to stand her ground. "The moon is chosen," Dominic declared, his voice carrying to every corner of the clearing. Without warning, he placed his palm against the curve of her neck. A searing heat erupted beneath his touch. Maya gasped as golden light spilled from his fingertips, spreading across her skin like liquid fire. The ancient mark of the Alpha King blazed against her throat, binding them together in the most sacred bond known to their kind. The pack fell to their knees in shock and reverence. Even Blake, the proud alpha heir, dropped to a kneeling position, his face pale with disbelief. This claim is sealed. Dominic announced, his arm now encircling Maya's waist. Only Vanessa remained standing, her beautiful face twisted with rage and disbelief. You can't, she hissed, her voice barely audible. She's nothing, she's incomplete. Dominic's gaze shifted to her, cold and assessing. Be careful, he warned quietly. Your sister is now your queen. William Rhodes stepped forward, then his weathered face solemn yet lit with an inner satisfaction. He bowed deeply to Maya, the first to acknowledge her new status. My Luna, he said, his gravelly voice carrying decades of wisdom. The prophecy speaks at last. Before Maya could question his cryptic words, darkness swirled at the edges of her vision. The intensity of the marking, combined with the emotional trauma of the night, overwhelmed her senses. As consciousness slipped away, she felt strong arms catch her, cradling her against a broad chest. The last thing she heard was Dominic's voice, a low rumble against her ear. Take her to Obsidian Fortress. The time has come. Morning light filtered through unfamiliar windows, casting patterns across Maya's face. She woke slowly, her mind struggling to process her surroundings. Gone was the modest cabin she had shared with her father at the edge of Silver Ridge territory. Instead, she found herself lying in an enormous bed, draped with furs and silks, in a room carved from what appeared to be solid black stone. Her hand flew to her neck, fingers tracing the mark that still pulsed with warmth. The memories of the previous night crashed over her, the failed ceremony, Blake's rejection, and the shocking intervention of the Alpha King. It seemed impossible, like a dream, too vivid to be real, yet the evidence burned against her skin. You're awake, good. Maya startled at the voice, turning to find William Rhodes seated in a chair by the hearth. The familiar sight of the old wolf brought unexpected comfort. William, where am I? What happened? Her voice emerged hoarse and uncertain. William leaned forward, his weathered hands clasped together. Time had bent his once straight back and turned his dark hair silver, but his eyes remained sharp and clear, carrying the wisdom of his 68 years. You're in Obsidian Fortress, the ancestral home of the Alpha Kings, he explained, gesturing to the grand room around them. And as for what happened, history, child, you made history. Maya shook her head in confusion, wincing at the resulting throb of pain. I don't understand. Why would the Alpha King mark me? I'm defective. I have no wolf. Everyone knows it. A small smile played across William's lips, revealing a secret knowledge that had been decades in the keeping. Is that what you believe, that you have no wolf? Of course, she replied, frustration coloring her tone. I've spent 25 years trying to hear her, to feel her. There's nothing but silence where others hear their other half. William rose with the careful movements of age and crossed to sit beside her on the bed. Maya, what if I told you that silence is not the absence of your wolf, but something far more significant? Before she could question him further, the massive oak door swung open, revealing Dominic Blackwood. The Alpha King filled the door frame, his powerful presence instantly commanding attention. In the daylight, Maya could see him more clearly, the strong line of his jaw, the intensity in his golden eyes, the air of absolute authority that surrounded him like an aura. Leave us, William, Dominic ordered, though his tone held respect for the elder wolf. William stood patting Maya's hand reassuringly before moving toward the door. As he passed Dominic, he paused. Remember what we discussed, he murmured. Patience has brought us this far. When the door closed behind him, Maya found herself alone with the most powerful werewolf in North America. She straightened her spine, refusing to show the fear coursing through her veins. Why am I here? She asked directly. Why did you mark me? Dominic studied her for a long moment, as if seeing layers beneath her surface that others had missed. You asked direct questions. Good. I despise manipulation in games. He approached his movements, controlled and deliberate. Maya resisted the urge to shrink back against the pillows. Instead, she met his gaze steadily, surprising herself with her own courage. You're here because you belong here, Dominic stated simply. As for why I marked you, some decisions transcend conscious choice. My wolf recognized something in you that called to us both. But I have no wolf, Maya insisted, the familiar shame creeping into her voice. So they told you, Dominic replied, his voice hardening, and you believed them because it was easier than questioning why you might be different. Maya flinched at the accuracy of his assessment. All her life, she had accepted the narrative forced upon her that she was deficient, incomplete, less than others in her pack. Challenging that belief meant facing possibilities that terrified her. Get dressed, Dominic instructed, gesturing to a wardrobe across the room. There are clothes that will fit you. When you're ready, we have much to discuss about your new position as Luna. I don't know how to be anyone's Luna, Maya admitted vulnerability slipping through her careful composure, especially not to the Alpha King. Something softened in Dominic's expression, a brief glimpse of the man beneath the power. No one is born knowing their destiny, Maya. Even I had to learn mine. He moved toward the door, then paused. One more thing, William has requested permission to stay at Obsidian Fortresses as your advisor. I've granted it. Relief flooded through her at this small mercy. Thank you. Dominic nodded once before leaving. The door closed behind him with a solid thud, leaving Maya alone with thoughts that swirled like storm clouds. She slid from the bed and crossed to the tall windows, pulling back heavy curtains to reveal a breathtaking view. Obsidian Fortress stood perched on a mountainside overlooking a vast wilderness of pine forests and snow-capped peaks. The structure itself appeared to be carved from the living mountain black stone walls rising organically from the cliff face. Far below, a valley stretched into the distance, morning mist clinging to its depths like scattered dreams. Maya pressed her palm to the cool glass, overwhelmed by the sudden altitude of her circumstances. Yesterday, she had been the quiet, overlooked daughter of a mid-ranking pack member, pitied for her lack of wolf connection. Today, she wore the mark of the Alpha King, elevated to a position of power she had never sought or imagined. After washing in the adjoining bathroom, which featured a sunken tub carved from the same black stone as the walls, Maya explored the wardrobe. Inside hung dresses and practical clothing in her exact size, as if the fortress had been expecting her arrival. She chose simple black leggings and a deep green sweater clothing that offered comfort rather than status. A soft knock at the door announced Margaret, a dignified woman of about 70, whose silver hair was bound in a neat braid. Her eyes sharp and assessing reminded Maya of a hawk. I'm the head healer here, Margaret introduced herself. I've come to check on you after last night's marking. The process can be intense. Maya nodded, allowing the older woman to examine the mark on her neck. Margaret's fingers were cool and professional, but her eyes held a curious wonder as she inspected the golden pattern emblazoned on Maya's skin. I've served 3 Alpha Kings in my time, Margaret commented, her voice carrying the slight raspiness of age. Never have I seen a mark manifest so powerfully. Usually they're subtle, visible only to other wolves. Yours shines like a beacon. What does that mean? Maya asked. Margaret's lips pressed together thoughtfully. It means you are exactly where you're meant to be despite what others may believe. She stepped back, apparently satisfied with her examination. You're physically well. The Alpha King awaits you in the Great Hall. William has offered to escort you. Outside the door, William stood waiting his familiar presence, a welcome anchor in this sea of change. As they walked through the fortress corridors, Maya marveled at the structure. Obsidian Fortress lived up to its name. Walls of polished black stone, reflected torchlight, giving the impression of walking through a starless night sky. Ancient tapestries depicted wolf packs running beneath full moons, battles between supernatural forces, and solemn ceremonies conducted by powerful alphas of the past. This place is over 300 years old, William explained, noting her fascination. Built by the first Alpha King as a sanctuary for all werewolf kind. The stones themselves are said to be infused with old magic. William, Maya began hesitantly. Last night before I fainted, you mentioned a prophecy. What did you mean? The old wolf's pace slowed, his expression growing solemn. There are things you need to know, Maya. Things about your heritage, your potential, and the true nature of what lies dormant within you. They paused before an alcove where moonlight streamed through a circular window, illuminating an ancient text carved into the black stone wall. The writing was in the old tongue, the sacred language of werewolves that few still understood. This prophecy has guided the actions of those who protect our kind for generations. William explained, his finger tracing the ancient symbols. When wolf blood runs weak and bonds begin to break, the Heartkeeper shall rise, one whose silence speaks louder than howls. In her heart all bonds shall be renewed or forever severed. Maya stared at the unfamiliar symbols, a chill running down her spine. And you think this refers to me? That's impossible. William's weathered face softened with compassion. For 25 years, I've watched over you, guided you when I could. Your mother knew what you might become. It's why she gave her life to protect you and your sister. The mention of her mother, who had died when the twins were just 5 years old, sent a sharp pain through Maya's heart. Her memories of Elizabeth Parker were fragmented, a gentle smile, the scent of lavender, a soft voice singing lullabies. My mother died in a hunting accident, Maya said, repeating what she had always been told. William's eyes darkened with old grief. Is that what your father told you? There was no accident, Maya. Elizabeth sacrificed herself to protect a secret, your secret. I was there that night. I was her sworn guardian, as I have been yours, working from the shadows. Maya felt as though the floor beneath her feet had suddenly disappeared. What secret? What are you saying? Your mother was a Heartkeeper, a rare type of werewolf whose power manifests differently. Instead of the traditional wolf connection, Heartkeepers possess the ability to sense, strengthen, and even manipulate the bonds between wolves and their human halves. William's voice had dropped to barely above a whisper. We thought Vanessa had inherited the gift. All signs pointed to her. We were wrong. The revelation struck Maya like a physical blow. Are you saying I'm not defective? That there's actually a reason I've never heard my wolf? William nodded solemnly. Heartkeepers don't hear their wolves because they are something more. They are the keepers of all bonds. But this gift comes with great danger. Those who would control such power have hunted Heartkeepers to near extinction. And my mother died protecting this secret, Maya concluded, her voice hollow with the weight of this new truth. Elizabeth gave her life so that you and your sister could grow up safely, William confirmed. I promised her I would watch over you both, though Vanessa never made that easy. She sensed the attention your mother gave you even as a child. It bred a jealousy that has festered for 20 years. Maya leaned against the cool stone wall, struggling to process these revelations. Does Dominic know about this? Is that why he marked me? The Alpha King knows there is something unique about you, though perhaps not the full extent, William replied carefully. His wolf sensed your potential. The marking was instinctive, his wolf claiming what it recognized as its perfect counterbalance. Their conversation was interrupted by the approach of George Sullivan, Dominic's elderly advisor. Despite his 72 years, George moved with surprising vigor, his lean frame betraying the strength that had made him a formidable enforcer in his younger days. The council has assembled, George announced, his sharp eyes taking in Maya's expression. They're eager to meet our new Luna. There was a hint of amusement in his tone, suggesting the council's eagerness might not be entirely positive. William straightened, squaring his shoulders despite the slight stoop of age. Then we shouldn't keep them waiting. The Great Hall of Obsidian Fortress lived up to its name. Vast and imposing, its ceilings soared 3 stories overhead, supported by columns carved to resemble ancient trees. A massive fireplace dominated one wall, large enough for several men to stand within. At the far end stood a raised dais where Dominic sat in a throne carved from a single piece of obsidian, its surface gleaming like oil in the firelight. Before him, arranged in a semicircle, sat 12 werewolves of varying ages, though most appeared to be older, established alphas from different territories. Their expressions ranged from curious to openly hostile as Maya entered, flanked by William and George. Dominic rose as she approached, a gesture of respect that clearly surprised the assembled council. My Luna arrives, he announced, extending his hand toward her. Maya moved forward on legs that threatened to tremble, acutely aware of the scrutiny directed at her. When she reached Dominic, he guided her to a second throne beside his own, smaller but no less impressive. The message was clear: she was his equal in this room. Esteemed council members, Dominic addressed the group, his voice carrying effortlessly through the vast space. I present Maya Parker, marked Luna of the Alpha King and rightful queen of all wolf territories. A murmur rippled through the assembled alphas. One of them, a white-haired man with a scar running from temple to jaw, stood abruptly. With all due respect, my king, he growled, making the honorific sound anything but respectful. We've heard disturbing reports about your new choice. They say she carries no wolf, that she failed her shifting ceremony. How can a wolfless female lead our kind? Maya felt Dominic tense beside her, his anger a palpable force. Before he could respond, she placed her hand gently on his arm and rose to her feet. You speak of things you do not understand, she said, her voice quieter than Dominic's, but somehow carrying the same weight. I may not carry a wolf in the way you recognize, but I am far from empty. The scarred alpha sneered. Pretty words from a defective. The rest of his sentence died as the flames in the massive fireplace suddenly roared upward, reaching nearly to the ceiling. Every candle in the room flared simultaneously, casting wild shadows across the stone walls. The obsidian beneath Maya's feet seemed to pulse with dark energy. She had not moved, had made no gesture yet. The evidence of power rippled outward from where she stood. The council members shifted uneasily in their seats, some leaning away instinctively. Interesting, Dominic commented, a hint of satisfaction in his voice. It seems my Luna's connection to the old magic is stronger than anticipated. The display subsided as quickly as it had manifested, leaving the room in stunned silence. Maya herself appeared the most shocked of all, staring at her hands as if they belonged to someone else. I didn't mean to. I don't know how I did that, she whispered. From his position near the wall, William exchanged a significant glance with George. The old advisor nodded slightly, a confirmation passing between them. The blood curse weakens our kind with each generation. George spoke up, addressing the council. Our connections to our wolves grow more tenuous. The old powers fade. Perhaps what we need is not another traditional alpha, but something different. Something that can strengthen what we are losing. A younger alpha leaned forward, curiosity overcoming his initial skepticism. What is the blood curse? I've heard it mentioned only in the oldest tales. George looked to Dominic, who nodded permission for him to continue. 300 years ago, George began, his voice taking on the cadence of a storyteller. Our kind was stronger. The bond between human and wolf was seamless, the transformation effortless. Old magic flowed through our bloodlines, connecting us to the earth and moon in ways we've since forgotten. The council listened with rapt attention as the elderly advisor continued. Then came the great hunt, when humans with knowledge of our existence sought to eradicate us. A powerful witch, whose name has been struck from our histories, offered certain Pax protection at a terrible price. Those who accepted her offer survived the hunt, but their bloodlines were tainted. With each generation, the curse has spread, weakening our connections to our wolf halves. And what does this have to do with her? The scarred alpha demanded, jerking his head toward Maya. William stepped forward, his voice steady despite his age. The prophecy speaks of a Heartkeeper who can restore what was damaged, one who can strengthen the bonds that the curse has weakened. Silence fell over the room as the implications sank in. Maya stood very still, the weight of expectation threatening to crush her. All her life she had been dismissed as flawed, incomplete. Now these powerful wolves looked at her with a mixture of hope and suspicion, as if she might be either their salvation or their downfall. The council will adjourn for now, Dominic announced, his tone allowing no argument. My Luna needs time to adjust to her new position. As the alphas filed out some casting, curious glances back at Maya, Dominic turned to her. For the first time, she saw uncertainty flicker across his otherwise confident features. You felt it, didn't you? He asked quietly, the power responding to your emotions. Maya nodded, still shaken by what had transpired. I don't understand what's happening to me. Neither do I, not fully, Dominic admitted, surprising her with his honesty. But my wolf has never been wrong. It recognized something in you that called to us both something ancient and powerful. Their conversation was interrupted by a messenger bursting into the great hall, his expression grave. The young wolf skidded to a halt before Dominic dropping to one knee. My king, he panted. Urgent news from Silvertridge territory. Alpha Blake and his new mate Vanessa have declared open rebellion against your rule. They're calling for others to join them, claiming... He hesitated, eyes darting toward Maya. Speak freely, Dominic commanded. The messenger swallowed hard. They claim you've been bewitched by a defective wolf, that your judgment is compromised. They're performing a ritual tonight under the blood moon to formally break from your authority. Maya felt the blood drain from her face. Vanessa, her own twin, was using her apparent weakness to launch a power grab. The betrayal cut deeper than Blake's rejection ever could. So it begins, William murmured, exchanging a knowing glance with George. Dominic's expression hardened into something dangerous. Prepare our forces, he ordered. If Silver Ridge wants to challenge the Alpha King, they'll learn why. That has always been a fatal mistake. As plans for confronting the rebellion took shape around her, Maya slipped away, seeking solitude to process everything she had learned. She found herself in a small courtyard open to the sky, where the afternoon sun cast long shadows across ancient stone benches. Here, alone with her thoughts, she finally allowed herself to weep, not from shame or rejection, as she had the night before, but from the overwhelming burden of discovery. Everything she had believed about herself had been a lie. The void where her wolf should have been wasn't empty after all, but filled with something else, something even the wisest among them only partially understood. They can seem heavy at first, the truths we've kept from you. Maya looked up to find William standing at the courtyard entrance, concern etched into the lines of his weathered face. Why didn't you tell me sooner? She asked, unable to keep the accusation from her voice. The old wolf sighed heavily, lowering himself onto the bench beside her with the careful movements of age. Your mother made me swear to protect not just your life, but your chance at a normal one. She hoped the gift might pass you by, that you could live without the burden of what it means to be a Heartkeeper. And now the time for secrets has passed, William replied solemnly. The blood moon rises again tonight. Dominic believes this rebellion must be crushed with force, but violence alone cannot heal what afflicts our kind. Maya wiped away her tears, a new resolve straightening her spine. Then what can... William placed his gnarled hand over hers, his palm rough with the calluses of a warrior who had served loyally for decades. That, my dear, is what you were born to discover. As twilight descended over Obsidian Fortress, casting long shadows across the ancient stones, Maya found herself standing at a crossroads of destiny, one that had been waiting for her since before she drew her first breath. Behind her lay the life she had known, marked by rejection and misunderstanding. Before her stretched an uncertain future heavy with prophecy and power she was only beginning to comprehend. In the distance, thunder rumbled across the mountains, or perhaps it was the gathering storm of war, as an Alpha King prepared to defend what was his, and a forgotten magic stirred in the blood of a woman who had spent her life believing she was incomplete. The blood moon would rise again tonight, and with its secrets long buried would finally come to light. The Obsidian Fortress awakened with the first light of dawn, its ancient stone corridors filled with purposeful movement as warriors prepared for conflict. Maya stood at the window of her chambers, watching the sunrise paint the distant mountains gold. Sleep had eluded her through the night, her mind too crowded with revelations that had transformed her understanding of herself. She traced the Alpha King's mark on her neck, still warm beneath her fingertips. In less than 24 hours, her entire existence had been upended. The quiet life she had known at Silver Ridge seemed like a distant memory, replaced by prophecies and powers she scarcely understood. A soft knock at the door announced Margaret, the elderly healer, carrying a tray of herbal tea and bread still warm from the ovens. The silver-haired woman's eyes held wisdom accumulated over 7 decades of life among wolves. "You'll need your strength today," Margaret said, setting the tray down. "The Alpha King has called a war council." Maya accepted the steaming cup gratefully. "Did you know," she asked quietly, "about what I am swarmum? I done in my mind, I come in." Margaret's weathered face softened. "I suspected. Heartkeepers are rare, but they leave signs for those who know how to look. Your healing abilities for one far stronger than they should be for someone supposedly without a wolf." Maya blinked in surprise. She had always possessed an affinity for healing, working as the pack's apprentice healer, but had attributed it to careful study rather than innate talent. "The way animals respond to you," Margaret continued, "the way plants seem to flourish at your touch. These are hallmarks of a Heartkeeper's connection to life's essential bonds. William said my mother was a Heartkeeper too." Margaret nodded, her eyes distant with memory. "Elizabeth Parker was extraordinary. She could sense the strength of a wolf bond. From across a room could mend connections damaged by trauma or conflict. When she died," the old healer paused, something like grief flickering across her features. "When she died, many of us feared her gifts had been lost forever." "Until now," Maya murmured. "Until now," Margaret agreed, "though your gifts remain largely dormant, untrained." Maya set down her cup, frustration tightening her chest. "Everyone keeps talking about these supposed abilities, yet I feel nothing but confusion. If I truly possess this power, why can't I access it?" "Because power without purpose is merely potential," came a deep voice from the doorway. Dominic Blackwood stood there, his imposing frame filling the entrance. Even dressed simply in a black shirt and pants, he radiated authority. His golden eyes swept over Maya, assessing her with an intensity that made her heart quicken, despite her uncertainty. Margaret bowed slightly to the Alpha King before departing, leaving Maya alone with the man who had claimed her as his mate, a stranger who somehow felt familiar in ways she couldn't explain. "You slept poorly," Dominic observed, noting the shadows beneath her eyes. "Wouldn't you if your entire identity had been rewritten in a single night?" Maya countered, surprising herself with her boldness. A hint of amusement flickered across Dominic's stern features. "Fair point." He crossed the room to stand before the window, his profile sharp against the morning light. "The council has assembled. We need to address the rebellion before it spreads." "You mean my sister's rebellion?" Maya said softly. Dominic turned to her, his expression unreadable. "Yes, though I suspect there are forces at work beyond Vanessa's ambition or Blake's pride." "What do you mean?" "William and George have been studying the ancient texts. The blood moon cycle that begins tonight has been prophesied for centuries as a time when the blood curse could either be strengthened or broken." His voice dropped lower. "Some would prefer it strengthened, as it serves their purposes to keep our kind weakened and divided. Maya wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly cold despite the warm room. And they think I'm a threat to those plans. You are. Dominic stepped closer, his presence overwhelming in the confines of the chamber. Whether you realize it or not, what sleeps within you could change everything for our kind. His proximity sent an unexpected warmth through Maya's veins at a response she wasn't prepared for. The marking bond between them pulsed a living connection that seemed to strengthen with each passing hour. I need to understand what's happening to me, she said, forcing herself to focus, before I face my sister or anyone else. Dominic studied her for a long moment as if weighing a decision. Finally, he nodded. Then it's time you spoke with someone who can provide those answers. He led her through corridors she hadn't yet explored, descending deep into the heart of the fortress. The walls here were rougher, carved directly from the living mountain, illuminated by torches that cast dancing shadows across the ancient stone. Few are permitted in these chambers, Dominic explained as they approached a heavy wooden door reinforced with iron bands. What lies beyond has been protected by every Alpha King since the fortress was built. The door swung open to reveal a vast circular chamber. At its center burned an eternal flame, blue-white and otherworldly, contained within a basin of obsidian. Surrounding the flame shelves carved into the rock walls held hundreds of ancient texts, scrolls, leather-bound books, and tablets inscribed with languages long forgotten by the modern world. Standing before the eternal flame was George Sullivan, his 72 years sitting lightly on his shoulders as he studied an open text. The elderly advisor looked up at their entrance, his sharp eyes brightening with interest. You've decided to show her the archives, he observed, addressing Dominic with the familiarity of one who had known him since childhood. She needs to understand what she's facing, Dominic replied. George nodded, setting aside the ancient text. Then it's time she learned the full truth of the blood curse and her place in the prophecy. For the next hour, Maya listened as George revealed the history that had been hidden from most werewolves for centuries. He spoke of a time when their kind lived in harmony with their wolf spirits, when transformation was as natural as breathing, when pack bonds were unbreakable and sacred. The witch who created the blood curse was once one of us, George explained, his voice carrying the weight of forbidden knowledge. A Heartkeeper who turned against her own kind, who believed werewolves had grown too powerful, too connected to the old magics. Her name was Morgana, added William, who had joined them silently during the telling. She corrupted her gift, using it to weaken bonds rather than strengthen them. The curse she created has been working through our bloodlines for centuries, growing stronger with each generation. Maya tried to absorb this information, her mind reeling with its implications. And you believe I can somehow break this curse? How? William and George exchanged glances, a lifetime of shared knowledge passing between them. The prophecy speaks of the Heartkeeper's awakening beneath a blood moon, William explained. Tonight marks the beginning of a rare triple blood moon cycle, 3 consecutive full moons that appear crimson. It hasn't occurred in over a century. During this cycle, the boundaries between human and wolf are at their thinnest, George continued. It's when a Heartkeeper's power can fully manifest for healing or for harm. Maya looked between the two elderly men, suddenly understanding the weight of responsibility they had carried all these years. William had watched over her since childhood, guiding her subtly toward this destiny, while honoring her mother's wish for her to have a normal life. George had spent decades studying ancient texts, preparing for a moment prophesied long before any of them were born. And Vanessa, she asked quietly, where does she fit into this? A shadow crossed William's weathered face. Your sister has always sensed she was being denied something meant for her. The jealousy that began in childhood has festered into something dangerous. She believes she should have been the Heartkeeper, Dominic concluded, his voice hard with certainty. She resents that the gift passed to you instead. Maya shook her head, memories of her twin surfacing. Vanessa, always pushing to be first, to be noticed, to be special. Their father had favored her, encouraging her competitive nature while dismissing Maya's quieter strengths. Only their mother had seemed to understand Maya, but she had died before Maya was old enough to truly know her. Tonight, Vanessa and Blake will conduct a ritual beneath the blood moon, George said gravely. Our sources indicate they have discovered an ancient ceremony, a perversion of the Heartkeeper's true purpose. They believe it can transfer your abilities to Vanessa. Can it? Maya asked, alarmed. No, William assured her, but it can cause tremendous harm to you, to Dominic, to the delicate balance of power among our kind. The ritual they plan to perform will strengthen the blood curse rather than break it. The eternal flame flickered suddenly, its blue-white light intensifying. Maya felt a strange resonance deep within her chest, as if something inside her was responding to the ancient fire. Your power stirs, George observed, watching her carefully. Even untrained, you can sense the old magics. Dominic stepped forward, his expression resolute. We need to move quickly. The War Council awaits, and we must prepare our forces to confront Silver Ridge before the blood moon rises. As they ascended from the archives, Maya felt the weight of destiny pressing down upon her shoulders. For 25 years, she had believed herself deficient, lacking what every other werewolf possessed. Now she discovered she carried something even rarer, more powerful, and more dangerous. The Great Hall had been transformed into a war room. Maps covered the massive oak table where once rival alpha leaders now stood united under Dominic's command. Territory boundaries were marked in red potential allies and enemies in blue and black. The assembled alphas fell silent as Dominic entered with Maya at his side. The rebellion at Silver Ridge is more than a challenge to my authority, Dominic announced without preamble. It represents an existential threat to all werewolf kind. Murmurs rippled through the gathering as Dominic outlined what they had learned. The ancient ritual, the blood curse, the prophecy that had guided their actions for generations. Some faces registered shock, others skepticism, but none dared openly question the Alpha King. We move on Silver Ridge before sunset, Dominic concluded. Any pack that stands with Blake and Vanessa Parker will be considered enemies of all werewolves. The scarred Alpha, who had challenged Maya the day before she now knew him as Thorn leader of the Mountain Shadow Pack, stepped forward with unexpected deference. My warriors are yours to command, Alpha King, he declared, then turned to Maya with a slight bow. I spoke out of ignorance yesterday, Luna. If you are indeed the Heartkeeper of prophecy, then we have awaited your coming for generations. One by one, the other alphas pledged their support, their earlier skepticism replaced by determination. The revelation of the blood curse had united them in common cause, for all had witnessed its effects in their own packs, weakening transformations, failing bonds, cubs born unable to shift at all. As the council dispersed to prepare their forces, William drew Maya aside. There is something else you should know, he said quietly. Something about Dominic. Maya glanced toward the Alpha King, who stood deep in conversation with his generals across the hall. Even from a distance, she could feel the pull of their marking bond, a connection that seemed to strengthen with each passing hour. What about him? She asked. The blood curse affects all werewolves, but some bloodlines more than others, William explained. The Blackwood line carries a particularly heavy burden. Each Alpha King has grown progressively weaker in their connection to their wolf, though they hide it well. Maya's eyes widened with understanding. That's why his wolf recognized me. It's seeking healing. William nodded gravely. Dominic is stronger than most, but the strain of maintaining his wolf connection takes a tremendous toll. Without intervention, he may be the last true Alpha King our kind ever knows. This revelation added new context to Dominic's intensity, his determination to protect her. It wasn't just about prophecy or power. It was about survival, not just for himself, but for the future of all werewolves. Does he know that I could help him specifically? Maya asked. He suspects, William replied. But his focus remains on his duty to all packs, not his personal salvation. It's what makes him worthy of his title. Their conversation was interrupted by Margaret's arrival, the elderly healer's expression tight with concern. You're needed in the infirmary, she told Maya. A scout has returned from Silver Ridge territory gravely injured. His wounds resist conventional treatment. Maya followed Margaret through the fortress to a chamber equipped as a modern medical facility. On a bed lay a young wolf no more than 20, his body covered in wounds that glowed with an unnatural purple light. What happened to him? Maya gasped. Magical attack, Margaret explained grimly. The wounds are infused with dark energy that prevents healing. I've tried everything in my knowledge. Maya approached the injured scout, instinctively reaching toward his most severe wound, a deep gash across his chest that pulsed with malevolent energy. As her fingers hovered above the injury, she felt something stir within her, a warmth that gathered in her palms. Trust your instincts, Margaret encouraged softly. The healer's gift has always been strong in Heartkeepers. Taking a deep breath, Maya placed her hands directly on the wound. Pain shot up her arms immediately, not physical pain, but something deeper, as if the darkness infecting the scout was attempting to invade her as well. She nearly pulled away, but then something shifted inside her. A golden light began to emanate from her palms, pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. The purple energy infecting the wound seemed to recoil from this light, struggling against it like oil repelled by water. Maya felt a connection forming not just to the scout's physical body, but to the bond between his human and wolf halves, which had been severed by the magical attack. "I can see it," she whispered, awe in her voice. "I can see the broken connection." Guided by instinct rather than knowledge, Maya focused on the damaged bond, visualizing it healing, strengthening, reconnecting. The golden light intensified, spreading from her hands throughout the scout's body. The purple energy dissipated with a final silent flash. The scout gasped, his eyes flying open as color returned to his face. The wound beneath Maya's hands began to close, new tissue forming at an accelerated rate. "Luna," he breathed, recognition and wonder in his gaze. Maya withdrew her hands, staring at them in shock. The power that had flowed through her felt both foreign and familiar, as if she had always possessed it but never known how to access it. "You did it?" Margaret said, her professional composure momentarily abandoned in favor of amazement. "You healed a wound that should have been fatal." The door to the infirmary swung open, revealing Dominic. His golden eyes took in the scene, the recovered scout, Maya's stunned expression, the residual glow fading from her hands. "Your power awakens," he observed quietly, something like hope flickering in his usually guarded expression. "I didn't know I could do that," Maya admitted, still trembling slightly from the experience. "It's just the beginning," Margaret assured her. "With training, your abilities could restore what generations of our kind have lost." The implications of this hung in the air between them. If Maya could heal one wounded wolf, could she heal them all? Could she mend the damage wrought by centuries of the blood curse? Before they could discuss it further, George entered the infirmary, his expression grave. "We have a problem," he announced. "Our spies report that Vanessa has acquired a powerful artifact, the Heartstone. It's been missing for centuries." Dominic's face darkened. "Are you certain?" George nodded grimly. "Absolutely. One of our scouts witnessed it before he was attacked." He gestured to the recovering young man on the bed. "What's the Heartstone?" Maya asked, sensing the sudden tension in the room. "A crystallized drop of blood from the original Heartkeeper who created the blood curse," William explained, having followed George into the infirmary. "Legend says it contains a portion of her corrupted power. With it, Vanessa could potentially channel dark energy during tonight's ritual." "This changes everything," Dominic growled. "We need to move now before they have a chance to use it." As the others dispersed to accelerate their preparations, Maya found herself alone with Dominic for the first time since morning. The Alpha King's usual mask of control had slipped, revealing genuine concern beneath. "Are you all right?" he asked, surprising her with the personal nature of the question. "I just discovered I can heal magical wounds, learned my twin sister wants to steal my abilities, and found out an ancient artifact might help her do it," Maya replied with a hint of gallows humor. "I'm not sure all right is the word I'd use." Unexpectedly, Dominic's stern expression softened into something almost resembling a smile. "Fair assessment." Maya studied him, seeing beyond his imposing presence to the burden he carried. William's revelation about the Blackwood bloodline's susceptibility to the blood curse gave new meaning to the shadows she occasionally glimpsed behind Dominic's golden eyes, the strain of maintaining his wolf connection, of appearing invulnerable when he felt the curse's effects more acutely than most. "Can I ask you something?" she ventured. Dominic inclined his head, waiting. "Why did you really mark me? Was it just because of the prophecy? Because your advisors told you to?" The question hung between them, more intimate than she had intended. Dominic was silent for a long moment, his gaze intense as he considered his response. "I have spent my life serving the needs of others," he finally said, his deep voice pitched low. "Every decision I make affects thousands of lives. I am Alpha King, first Dominic Blackwood, second always." He stepped closer, the marking bond between them humming with energy. "But when I saw you standing there enduring their cruelty with quiet dignity, something in me responded that had nothing to do with duty or prophecy. My wolf recognized you before my human side understood why." The admission stirred something deep within Maya, a response she wasn't prepared for. Despite everything, the chaos, the danger, the uncertainty, she felt drawn to him in ways that transcended their mystical connection. "We should join the others," Dominic said, breaking the moment. "There's much to prepare before we confront Silver Ridge." As they walked through the fortress corridors, Maya sensed a change in the very air around them, the calm before an inevitable storm. Warriors prepared, weapons healers gathered in supplies, and throughout it all, an undercurrent of anticipation flowed like an invisible current. In the main courtyard, William and George supervised the loading of ancient texts and artifacts into secured cases. Their decades of friendship were evident in their seamless cooperation, two elders united in purpose, after a lifetime of shared secrets. "The most valuable knowledge must be protected," William explained when Maya approached. If tonight goes poorly, future generations will need guidance. The gravity of his words struck Maya with full force. This wasn't just about her sister's jealousy or her own newly discovered abilities. It was about the future of their entire species, hanging in the balance of decisions made tonight. "I don't know if I'm ready for this," she confessed quietly. William's weathered face softened with compassion. "No one is ever ready for destiny, child. We can only meet it with whatever courage we can muster when it arrives." As sunset approached, Maya retreated to her chambers to prepare. Margaret had provided traditional battle attire befitting an Alpha Luna practical black pants and a tunic of deep midnight blue embroidered with silver symbols of protection. As Maya dressed, she caught sight of her reflection in the mirror and barely recognized herself. Gone was the uncertain, overlooked healer from Silver Ridge. In her place stood someone transformed not just by the Alpha King's mark glowing golden at her throat, but by the knowledge and purpose she now carried. Her honey gold hair had been braided back from her face, and her eyes seemed to hold a new awareness, as if she were seeing the world through different lenses. A soft knock announced Margaret carrying a small wooden box. "Something that belonged to your mother," the elderly healer explained, opening the box to reveal a silver pendant shaped like a crescent moon. "Elizabeth wore this always. William kept it safe after her death, waiting for the right moment to return it to you." Maya accepted the necklace with trembling fingers. The silver felt warm against her skin, as if it retained some essence of the mother she had lost too young. She fastened it around her neck, the crescent moon resting just below Dominic's marking. "It suits you," Margaret observed with approval. "Now come, the Alpha King awaits and the blood moon rises." The fortress courtyard had transformed into an organized chaos of warriors preparing for battle. Hundreds of wolves from allied packs had gathered their loyalty to the Alpha King, overriding ancient territorial disputes. Among them moved Dominic, his commanding presence, drawing respect and determination from even the most battle-hardened fighters. He turned as Maya approached, his golden eyes reflecting the dying sunlight. Something shifted in his expression when he saw her, a flicker of pride perhaps, or recognition of the strength she was beginning to embody. "My Luna joins us," he announced, his voice carrying across the courtyard. The assembled warriors saluted her with fists over hearts, acknowledging her position as their queen. The moment was interrupted by a commotion at the fortress gates. Guards escorted a haggard messenger into the courtyard, the young wolf bearing the marks of hard travel and urgency. "Alpha King," he gasped, dropping to one knee before Dominic. "Silver Ridge sends terms." A ripple of surprise passed through the gathered wolves. Dominic's expression darkened as he accepted the sealed parchment. Breaking it open, he scanned the contents, his jaw tightening visibly. "What is it?" Maya asked, stepping closer. Dominic handed her the parchment. "See for yourself." The message was brief, written in Vanessa's flowing script, to Dominic Blackwood, Alpha, King of the Northwest Territories. "Silver Ridge formally withdraws from your protection and authority. We claim independence under new leadership. Blood need not be shed if you acknowledge our sovereignty. However, there is a personal matter to resolve. The one you've claimed as Luna is bound to us by blood and birth. Return Maya Parker to Silver Ridge before moonrise, and we will consider your transgression forgiven. Refuse and face consequences beyond your imagining. The Heartstone awakens. The blood moon rises. Choose wisely. Vanessa Parker, Alpha Luna of Sovereign Silver Ridge." Maya looked up from the parchment, her heart pounding. "She's using me as an excuse. This isn't about me at all. It's about power." "It's about the ritual," William interjected, having read the message over her shoulder. "They need you physically present to attempt the transfer of power." "It's a trap," Dominic stated flatly. "One we will not honor." Maya studied the message again, reading between the lines of her twin's words. 25 years of shared history of knowing Vanessa's tells her patterns the way she thought, gave Maya insights others might miss. She's scared, Maya realized suddenly. Behind the bravado and threats, she's terrified. She wouldn't make demands unless she was uncertain of her position. George nodded thoughtfully. "The Heartstone is powerful but unpredictable. Perhaps it's not responding as they hoped." A plan began to form in Maya's mind, risky, perhaps foolish, but potentially effective. "What if I did go to Silver Ridge?" "Absolutely not." Dominic growled a suggestion, visibly angering him. "I won't deliver you into their hands." "Not as a sacrifice," Maya clarified, "as a distraction. While Vanessa focuses on me, your forces could approach undetected. And She hesitated, the newfound confidence in her abilities still fragile. "I might be able to sense the Heartstone's location, perhaps even neutralize it." William and George exchanged looks of concern mixed with reluctant consideration. The strategy had merit, dangerous though it was. "It's too risky," Dominic insisted, though his tactical mind was clearly weighing the potential advantages. "The marking bond between us is still new, untested. If they manage to separate us completely—" "They won't," Maya said with more certainty than she felt. "The bond grows stronger by the hour. I can feel it." It was true. The connection between them had deepened throughout the day, a golden thread linking their spirits that seemed to strengthen with each shared glance, each moment of understanding. "I forbid it," Dominic declared, his alpha authority ringing through the words. Maya straightened her spine, meeting his gaze directly. "With respect, Alpha King, I am not one of your subjects to command. I am your Luna, your equal, and this is my sister, my blood. I have insights none of your warriors possess." A tense silence fell over the courtyard as the gathered wolves witnessed this unprecedented challenge to the Alpha King's authority. Dominic's expression darkened, the wolf within him visibly rising to the surface. Golden eyes, brightening muscles, tensing, an aura of power radiating from his skin. Yet Maya stood her ground, her own newly awakened power responding instinctively. The golden mark on her neck pulsed with light, and a subtle shimmer seemed to surround her form. The standoff lasted only moments before Dominic's expression shifted, something like respect replacing his anger. "You argue like a true Luna," he conceded, their reluctance still edged his voice. "But you will not go alone. We will create a plan that doesn't require your sacrifice." As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the fortress, Maya felt a strange sensation, a whisper in her mind that wasn't quite a voice, a presence that wasn't quite physical. For the first time in her life, she sensed something stirring within her, responding to the approach of the blood moon. Soon the presence seemed to say, "We awaken together." Miles away in the heart of Silver Ridge territory, Vanessa Parker stood before an ancient altar, the heartstone glowing crimson in her palm. Its pulsing light matched the rhythm of her heartbeat, power flowing between them in a circuit of dark energy. "She will come," she murmured to Blake, who watched with growing unease. "My sister always did what was expected of her." "And if she doesn't?" Blake questioned, his confidence in their rebellion wavering as the consequences of challenging the Alpha King became increasingly clear. Vanessa smiled, a sharp expression that held no warmth. "Then we take what should have been mine all along. Either way, by morning, Silver Ridge will have the only true Heartkeeper the world has seen in 3 centuries." The first crimson edge of the blood moon appeared above the eastern horizon, bathing the forests of Montana in an otherworldly glow. Ancient magic stirred in the very soil, responding to celestial forces that had aligned precisely as prophesied centuries before. The time of reckoning had arrived, and with it the potential salvation or damnation of an entire species. Beneath that blood-red light, Maya Parker prepared to confront her twin, her past, and a destiny she was only beginning to understand. In the deepest chamber of Obsidian Fortress, hidden from all but the most trusted advisors, an ancient artifact awakened in response to the blood moon's rise. The crystal of bonds, dormant for centuries, began to glow with silver light. George Sullivan keeping vigil before it closed his eyes in solemn prayer. "It begins," he whispered. "May the wisdom of our ancestors guide what comes next." The blood moon hung low and swollen in the night sky, bathing the Montana wilderness in crimson light. From the highest tower of Obsidian Fortress, Dominic Blackwood surveyed the assembled forces in the courtyard below. Hundreds of warriors from allied packs united under his command for the first time in generations. The sight should have filled him with satisfaction, yet his golden eyes repeatedly returned to the eastern horizon toward Silver Ridge territory. Toward Maya, despite his vehement objections, she had convinced him of the merits of her plan. While the main force would approach Silver Ridge from the north, Maya, accompanied by William and a small elite guard, would enter from the south using the old hunting trails she had known since childhood. The diversionary tactic made strategic sense, utilizing her intimate knowledge of the territory while keeping their forces unpredictable. But logic did little to quell the unease churning in Dominic's gut. The marking bond between them pulled taut with her absence, a constant awareness of her location and general emotional state. Even now he could sense her determination, underscored by threads of fear she was working hard to control. "She's stronger than she appears," came George Sullivan's gravelly voice from behind him. Dominic didn't turn, knowing his elderly advisor could read his concern as clearly as written words. "Strength isn't always enough." George moved to stand beside him, his 72 years evident in his measured movements, but belied by the sharp intelligence in his eyes. The old wolf had served 3 generations of Blackwood Alpha Kings, his counsel valued above all others. I've watched many battles in my time, George reflected, his gaze sweeping over the preparations below. The fiercest warriors aren't always those with the sharpest claws or strongest jaws. Sometimes it's those with the most to protect who prove most formidable. Dominic considered this, his thoughts returning to the moment he had first seen Maya standing proud, despite her public humiliation. The quiet dignity she had maintained, even as her world collapsed around her, had called to something deep within him, something his wolf had recognized before his human side understood. The blood curse weakens my connection to my wolf with each passing day, Dominic admitted, voicing aloud what few knew. I feel him slipping away like trying to hold water in cupped hands. George nodded solemnly. The Blackwood line has always borne the heaviest burden of the curse. Your father felt it too toward the end. And yet you believe she can change this, a woman who only yesterday discovered her own powers. I believe in prophecy, George replied simply. And I believe in what I've seen with my own eyes. Her healing of that scout was no small feat. Wounds infused with dark magic would have killed him within hours, yet she mended him completely. Before Dominic could respond, a horn sounded from the fortress gates, the signal to begin their march. The time for doubt had passed, now only action remained. May the wisdom of our ancestors guide us all, George murmured, a traditional blessing before battle. As Dominic descended to lead his warriors, his last thought was of Maya, of the golden light that had flowed from her hands while healing, of the quiet certainty that had gradually replaced her self-doubt, of the bond between them that seemed to strengthen with each passing hour, despite the distance now separating them. Miles away, Maya Parker crouched in the undergrowth at the southern edge of Silver Ridge territory, her senses alert to every whisper of wind through pine needles, every subtle shift in the forest's nighttime symphony. William Rhodes knelt beside her, his experienced eyes scanning the tree line for signs of patrol. Despite his 68 years, the old warrior moved with surprising stealth, decades of experience compensating for the physical toll of age. The main patrol passed 5 minutes ago, William whispered. We have a narrow window. Maya nodded, drawing strength from her mother's silver crescent pendant against her skin. The marking at her neck pulsed warmly, a constant reminder of Dominic's presence even miles away. Through their bond, she could sense his determination and concern, his forces now advancing toward the northern boundary of Silver Ridge. Remember, William cautioned as they prepared to move, your sister will expect you to come. What she won't expect is that you now understand your power. What little of it I can access, Maya responded, doubt creeping into her voice. William's weathered hand squeezed her shoulder. Trust your instincts. Your mother was the same. Her greatest abilities emerged when the need was most dire. They moved silently through familiar woods, Maya leading the way through hidden paths known only to those who had grown up exploring these forests. Each step brought her closer to the confrontation with her twin, to the painful reckoning that had been brewing for 25 years. Silver Ridge Packhouse rose from the clearing, ahead its log and stone structure, illuminated by torches that cast long shadows across the ceremonial grounds. Unlike the traditional pack gathering of 2 nights prior to tonight's assembly, had a more ominous energy. Pack members stood in a wide circle around an ancient stone altar that had been unearthed from the forest floor, a relic from the earliest days of their kind, normally kept buried and forgotten. Atop the altar, pulsing with malevolent crimson energy that matched the blood moon overhead, sat the Heartstone. Even from a distance, Maya could sense its corrupted power, a twisted version of the energy she had channeled while healing the wounded scout. And before it stood Vanessa, resplendent in ceremonial robes of deep crimson, her honey gold hair so like Maya's own flowing loose around her shoulders. Blake stood at her side, though Maya noted the uncertainty in his posture, the way his eyes darted nervously between Vanessa and the gathered pack. The confident alpha heir seemed diminished somehow, as if beginning to realize he had aligned himself with forces beyond his understanding. She's going to start the ritual soon, William murmured. We need to move quickly. Maya studied the scene, noting the positions of guards, the flow of energy centered on the altar, the subtle signs of fear in many pack members' expressions. This was not the unified rebellion Vanessa had portrayed in her message, but a pack held captive by intimidation and dark magic. Not yet, Maya decided, her instincts guiding her. Let her begin. The moment she channels the Heartstone's power, she'll be vulnerable. William's eyebrows rose in surprise. How do you know this? I don't know, Maya admitted. I can feel it somehow. The stone requires complete concentration to control. Just then, Vanessa raised her hands to the blood moon. her voice carrying across the clearing in words of the old tongue, ancient werewolf language rarely spoken in modern times. The Heartstone's crimson glow intensified, sending tendrils of scarlet energy spiraling upward to meet the moonlight. By blood and bone, by moon and stone, I claim what flows through shared veins, Vanessa intoned. Sister to sister, twin to twin, what was divided shall be one again. The pack members shifted uneasily, many looking as if they wished to flee, but remained rooted in place by fear or dark magic. Blake's expression had transformed to one of open alarm, clearly unprepared for the ancient power Vanessa was channeling. Now, Maya whispered, rising from their hiding place. It's time. She stepped into the clearing alone, leaving William and the guards concealed in the tree line as planned. Her heart hammered against her ribs, but her steps remained steady, purpose replacing fear with each movement forward. Looking for me, sister, she called out, her voice carrying across the suddenly silent gathering. Vanessa's concentration broke the crimson energy, wavering as she turned toward Maya's voice. Shock registered on her face, quickly replaced by triumphant satisfaction. You came, she said, lowering her arms. I knew you would. Always the dutiful twin doing what's expected. Maya continued forward, aware of all eyes upon her, the pack members' expressions ranging from shock to relief to fear. I came to end this, Vanessa, before you destroy yourself and everyone here. Vanessa laughed, the sound brittle and sharp. Destroy, I'm saving our kind. The Alpha King is weak, his bloodline failing. The blood curse strengthens with each generation. Soon there will be no true werewolves left, just humans with faint memories of what they once were. And you believe the Heartstone will change that? Maya asked now, standing at the edge of the circle. That corrupted power can somehow heal our kind. Not heal, Vanessa corrected, lifting the stone so it pulsed between them like a malevolent heart. Purify. The weak will fall away. The strong will transform into what we were always meant to be. Maya sensed the truth behind her sister's words, not in what was said, but in what remained unspoken. You're afraid, she realized aloud. You've always been afraid that you weren't special enough, powerful enough. That's why you needed to believe I was defective so you could feel complete by comparison. Anger flashed across Vanessa's beautiful features. I am the rightful Heartkeeper, Mother knew it. I saw how she looked at you always with that concern, that worry. She knew you were wrong somehow. She was protecting me, Maya countered quietly. She saw my gift before anyone else and knew what it would mean, the danger it would bring. Lies! Vanessa snarled, the Heartstone flaring brighter with her rage. You stole what was mine, and now I'll take it back. Before Maya could react, Vanessa thrust the Heartstone forward. Crimson energy surged outward like a physical blow, striking Maya in the chest and sending her stumbling backward. Pain radiated through her body, a burning sensation that clawed at her from within. Through the haze of agony, Maya felt something else, a response from deep inside her, a warmth that pushed back against the invasive energy. The marking on her neck flared golden, a counterpoint to the stone's crimson assault. You can't fight this, Vanessa hissed, advancing on her fallen sister. The stone was created by the first Heartkeeper. It knows the taste of your power and hungers for it. Maya struggled to her feet, her vision blurring as two opposing forces battled within her. Through her bond with Dominic, she sensed his sudden alarm, his awareness that she was in danger. His forces would arrive soon, but not soon enough to prevent what Vanessa had set in motion. I don't want to fight you. Maya gasped, the golden light at her throat spreading to envelop her hands. I want to help you, sister. Whatever emptiness you're trying to fill, this won't do it. Save your pity, Vanessa spat. You've had everything handed to you. The pack's affection, William's protection, now the Alpha King himself. It was supposed to be mine. With that final cry, Vanessa pressed the Heartstone to her own chest. Crimson energy engulfed her, completely lifting her from the ground as ancient words poured from her lips. Words of binding, of stealing, of breaking the natural order. The ritual had begun in earnest, its dark purpose clear to forcibly transfer Maya's Heartkeeper abilities to Vanessa. Maya felt it immediately, a pulling sensation deep within her chest, as if invisible hands were trying to extract something vital from her very core. The pain intensified, driving her to her knees. Around them, the pack members cried out in alarm as the ground began to tremble. Stop this, Vanessa, Blake shouted, finally finding his courage. This isn't what we agreed to. But Vanessa was beyond hearing, consumed by the ritual and the stone's corrupted power. The blood moon overhead seemed to pulse in rhythm with the Heartstone, its light focusing into a beam that connected directly to Vanessa's levitating form. In that moment of greatest peril, with darkness closing in around her vision, Maya heard a voice from within, clear and powerful. Now we rise together. Warmth flooded through her, dissolving the pain, replacing fear with certainty. For the first time in her 25 years, Maya felt the presence of her wolf, not separate as in other werewolves, but integrated, two halves of the same soul, finally acknowledging each other. Golden light erupted from Maya's body, a wave of pure energy that rippled outward, shattering the crimson bonds that had been draining her. She rose to her feet, her eyes shimmering with newfound power. The marking at her throat pulsed in time with her heartbeat, connecting her to Dominic miles away. Through their bond, she felt his response, a surge of strength, of support, of absolute conviction in her ability to face this challenge. And not just Dominic, she sensed William in the trees, his decades of faith in her potential finally validated. She felt the connections between all pack members present the bonds that had been weakened by the blood curse, but never fully broken. "I am not what you think, Vanessa," Maya said, her voice carrying a new authority. "I am not defective or incomplete. I am a Heartkeeper, as our mother was before me, and I will not let you corrupt that legacy." Vanessa screamed in rage and frustration as her ritual faltered. The heartstone pulsed erratically against her chest, its power fluctuating as it encountered resistance it had never anticipated. "It's mine," she shrieked, desperation replacing confidence. "Give it to me." Maya approached steadily, golden light flowing from her hands like living water. "I can't give you what isn't mine to give. This power doesn't belong to me, it flows through me. It's meant to heal, not harm, to unite, not divide." As the sisters faced each other, one wreathed in corrupted crimson, the other in healing gold, the pack members drew back, sensing they were witnessing something monumental. Blake retreated entirely, fear finally overcoming his ambition as the magnitude of Vanessa's true intentions became clear. Just then, howls sounded from the northern edge of the territory, Dominic's forces arriving as planned. The distraction gave Vanessa a momentary advantage. With a cry of rage, she hurled the full power of the Heartstone directly at Maya. The crimson blast struck with such force that several nearby pack members were knocked off their feet. Maya stood her ground, the golden light surrounding her flickering but holding against the assault. Through gritted teeth, she pushed back, drawing on instincts she didn't know she possessed. "I don't want to hurt you," Maya called to her twin, genuine pain in her voice. "Please stop this before it's too late." "It's already too late," Vanessa snarled, the Heartstone now physically merging with her chest, its corruption spreading visibly through her veins like dark rivers beneath her skin. "I've given everything for this moment. I won't be denied." With those words, Vanessa unleashed a final desperate attack, not at Maya, but at something far more vulnerable. The crimson energy shot past Maya toward the tree line where William had emerged from hiding, intending to aid his charge. Maya felt the attack before she saw it, a severing energy designed to cut the bonds between human and wolf, leaving nothing but empty shells behind. Without conscious thought, she threw herself into its path, golden light flaring to intercept the lethal blast. The collision of energies exploded in midair, the shockwave knocking everyone within 50 yards to the ground. When the light faded, Maya lay unmoving near the ancient altar, William kneeling protectively over her still form. Silence fell over the clearing, broken only by the sound of running feet as Dominic Blackwood burst through the trees, his golden eyes blazing with fury and fear. Behind him came his elite warriors, surrounding the ceremonial grounds within seconds. Dominic paid them no heed, his focus entirely on Maya's motionless body. He crossed the distance in long strides, dropping to his knees beside her. The marking bond between them flickered faintly, growing weaker with each passing second. "Maya," he said her name, a prayer and command in one. When she didn't respond, something broke in him, a wall he had maintained for years separating the Alpha King from the man. "Please," he whispered, gathering her into his arms. "Don't leave me now." Across the clearing, Vanessa stood swaying, the Heartstone's power fluctuating wildly as it continued to merge with her body. Her expression held confusion rather than triumph, pain replacing ambition as the corruption spread visibly through her system. "What's happening to me?" she gasped, looking down at her hands where dark veins had begun to form. "This isn't right. This isn't what was promised." William rose from Maya's side, his weathered face grim with ancient knowledge. "The Heartstone corrupts all it touches," he said loud enough for all to hear. "It was never meant to transfer power, only to steal it. And what it cannot take, it destroys." Horror dawned on Vanessa's face as understanding came too late. The stone had never intended to make her a Heartkeeper. It had merely used her jealousy and ambition as tools to break the bloodline completely. "Help me," she pleaded, reaching toward Maya's still form. "Sister, please." In Dominic's arms, Maya stirred her eyelids, fluttering open. Through the bond, he felt her life force strengthening her innate power, rallying against whatever damage the energy collision had caused. "Dominic," she whispered, her hand rising to touch his face with gentle wonder. Relief flooded through him, so powerful it nearly undid his composure entirely. "You're safe," he assured her, helping her sit upright. "It's over." But Maya shook her head, her gaze finding Vanessa across the clearing. "Not yet," she said softly. "She needs help." Despite Dominic's protests, Maya struggled to her feet, leaning heavily on him for support as they approached Vanessa. The corrupted twin had fallen to her knees, the heartstone now a grotesque growth protruding from her chest, its crimson light pulsing erratically. "Stay back," Vanessa warned, genuine fear replacing her earlier arrogance. "I can't control it anymore." Maya studied her sister with compassion that transcended their years of conflict. "You never could," she said gently. "The stone controls those who use it. It feeds on envy, on rage, on the desire for power over others." "Then I'm lost," Vanessa whispered, tears cutting tracks through the dust on her face. "No," Maya countered, kneeling before her twin despite the danger. "Not while I breathe." She placed her hands on either side of the heartstone, golden light flowing from her palms to surround the corrupted artifact. Pain shot through her arms at the contact, but she persisted, guided by instinct and the newfound connection to her inner power. "What are you doing?" Vanessa asked, her voice small with fear and hope. "What a Heartkeeper is meant to do," Maya replied, concentration evident in her furrowed brow. "Healing bonds, not breaking them, even yours." The golden light intensified, seeping into the heartstone's crimson glow. Where the energies met, purple sparks flared and died. Maya closed her eyes, focusing not on the stone itself, but on the connection between it and her sister, the parasitic bond that had formed during the ritual. "I can't remove it completely," she explained, sweat beading on her forehead from the effort. "But I can contain its corruption, prevent it from consuming you entirely." Around them, the pack members watched in awe as the process unfolded, the golden light gradually encasing the heartstone in a translucent shell, separating its malevolent energy from Vanessa's life force without removing it physically. "Why?" Vanessa whispered, genuine confusion in her voice. "Why help me after everything I've done?" Maya met her twin's gaze steadily. "Because you're my sister. Because our mother loved us both. Because hate has never healed anything." As the golden shell solidified around the heartstone, Vanessa slumped forward, exhaustion overtaking her. The dark veins receded from her skin, though they didn't disappear entirely, a permanent reminder of the price of her ambition. Maya sat back on her heels, equally drained by the effort. Dominic moved immediately to support her, his arms strong around her shoulders. "The corruption is contained," she told him, leaning gratefully into his strength. "But the stone remains dangerous. You see, it needs to be secured somewhere. It can never be used again." Obsidian Fortress has chambers designed for such artifacts, George Sullivan announced, having arrived with Dominic's forces. The elderly advisor surveyed the scene with the measured assessment of one who had witnessed many conflicts over his long life. "We can keep it there under constant guard." Dominic nodded his agreement, then turned to address the Silver Ridge pack members who stood watching in stunned silence. "Your Alpha has betrayed not just my trust, but yours. She has endangered all werewolf kind for personal gain." Blake, who had remained on the periphery during the confrontation, stepped forward hesitantly. "Alpha King, I accept responsibility for my role in this rebellion. I was blinded by pride and ambition." "As were many," Dominic acknowledged, his tone stern but not without mercy. "Silver Ridge will remain under direct control of the Alpha King until new leadership can be established. Leadership that understands the true meaning of pack bonds." His golden gaze swept over the assembled wolves, many now kneeling in submission. "Tonight you have witnessed the power of a true Heartkeeper, not as a weapon but as a healer. Remember this when the whispers of rebellion tempt you again." As Dominic's warriors secured Vanessa and began the process of establishing order, William approached Maya, pride evident in his weathered features. "Your mother would be so proud," he said quietly. "Elizabeth always believed you would find your way to your power when the time was right." Maya smiled tiredly. "I still have so much to learn." "And time to learn it," William assured her. "The first phase of the prophecy has been fulfilled. The triple blood moon cycle continues for 2 more months, time enough to prepare for whatever comes next." The journey back to Obsidian Fortress was slow and solemn. Vanessa the Heartstone, still embedded in her chest but contained by Maya's power, was transported under heavy guard. The Silver Ridge Pack members, uncertain of their future, but relieved that bloodshed had been minimal, began the process of reconciliation under the watchful eyes of Dominic's lieutenants. Maya rode beside Dominic, their marking bond now stronger than ever after the night's events. Through it, she sensed a change in him, a lightening of the burden he had carried alone for so long. His wolf connection, which had been weakening under the blood curse, had stabilized in proximity to her Heartkeeper energy. "You saved her," Dominic observed as they crested a ridge that offered views of the fortress in the distance. "After everything she did, you still chose mercy." "Not just mercy," Maya clarified. "Understanding. Vanessa's actions were wrong, but her pain was real. The emptiness she tried to fill with power is something many feel." Dominic studied her thoughtfully. "You speak with wisdom beyond your years." "Perhaps it comes with the territory," she replied with a small smile. "Heartkeepers see the connections others miss, the lonely places, the broken bonds, the yearning for belonging that drives so much of what we do." Their conversation paused as they approached the fortress gates, where Margaret awaited them anxiously. The elderly healer rushed forward to assess Maya's condition, clucking disapprovingly at the evidence of her ordeal. "Straight to the infirmary," she instructed, brooking no argument even from the Alpha King. "Heartkeeper or not, you've depleted your energy to dangerous levels." In the quiet of the infirmary, with Dominic refusing to leave her side, Maya finally allowed exhaustion to claim her. As she drifted towards sleep, she felt his hand envelop hers, the marking bond between them humming with contentment and promise. "Rest," he murmured. "I'll be here when you wake." 3 days later, Maya stood on the highest balcony of Obsidian Fortress, watching the sunrise paint the Montana wilderness in hues of gold and amber. Her strength had returned gradually, the innate healing abilities of her Heartkeeper nature accelerating her recovery. Behind her, the door opened to admit William and George, the elderly advisors, moving with the careful respect of those approaching royalty. Maya smiled at the notion she was still adjusting to her status as Luna, to the deference shown by wolves who days ago might have dismissed her as defective. "The Heartstone is secured," George reported, "triple sealed in the deepest chamber, with rotating guards at all times." "And Vanessa?" Maya asked. William's expression softened with compassion for his charge's concern. "Stable. The containment you created is holding. She will bear the consequences of her actions, but she will live." Maya nodded, in relief evident in her posture. Despite everything, Vanessa remained her twin, her blood. The childhood bond between them, though damaged almost beyond repair, still existed in some form. "The council has assembled," George continued. "They await you and the Alpha King to discuss the next phase of the prophecy." Maya took a deep breath, squaring her shoulders. "Then we shouldn't keep them waiting." As they walked through the fortress corridors, Maya was struck by the changes wrought in just a few short days. Wolves from all territories moved with new purpose, their eyes bright with hope that had been absent for generations. Word had spread quickly about the events at Silver Ridge, about the Heartkeeper who had contained corruption rather than destroying it, who had chosen healing over vengeance. In the great hall, Dominic awaited beside a large table covered with ancient texts and maps. His golden eyes warmed visibly when they fell on Maya, the marking bond between them pulsing with shared emotion. The assembled council members, alphas from territories across the Northwest, rose as Maya entered, acknowledging her status with newfound respect. Even Thorn, the scarred alpha who had initially challenged her, bowed his head in deference. "My Luna honors us with her presence," Dominic said formally, though the pride in his voice was evident to all. Maya took her place beside him, the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders with surprising comfort. In the span of 3 days, she had moved from self-doubt to purpose, from rejection to acceptance, from isolation to connection. "The first blood moon has passed," Dominic began, addressing the council. "But the prophecy speaks of 3. What happens next will determine the future of all werewolf kind." George stepped forward, unrolling an ancient parchment on the table. According to the text, the triple blood moon cycle represents 3 phases: awakening, transformation, and restoration. We have witnessed the awakening, the emergence of the Heartkeeper's power. Next comes transformation. "What does that mean exactly?" asked one of the younger alphas. William answered, his decades of knowledge evident in his steady voice. "The blood curse has weakened our connections to our wolf spirits for generations. During the second blood moon, those connections can be strengthened, but only if guided by a fully realized Heartkeeper." All eyes turned to Maya, who felt the weight of their expectations like a physical pressure. I'm still learning to control my abilities, she admitted honestly. I don't know if I'm ready for such responsibility. You won't face it alone, Dominic assured her, his hand finding hers beneath the table. Through their bond, she felt his absolute confidence in her abilities, his unwavering support of her journey. Margaret, who had joined in the council as head healer, spoke up from her position near the wall. The texts speak of a ritual during the second blood moon one that requires both the Alpha King and the Heartkeeper. Together, they can create a resonance that allows other wolves to strengthen their own bonds. Maya considered this the implications both thrilling and terrifying. If we succeed, we could begin to reverse centuries of the blood curse's damage. And if we fail, Thorne asked bluntly. George's expression grew solemn. Then the curse accelerates. We would see the final dissolution of wolf bonds within a generation. Our kind would become merely human, our heritage lost forever. Silence fell over this great hall as the stakes became clear. Dominic squeezed Maya's hand gently, offering silent support through their connection. We have 1 month until the second blood moon, he announced to the council. 1 month for our Luna to master her abilities, for our packs to prepare for ancient knowledge to be recovered and understood. As the council dispersed to begin preparations, Dominic led Maya to a quieter corner of the hall. For a moment, he simply looked at her, his golden eyes reflecting emotions too complex for words. 3 nights ago, when I felt your life force fading through our bond, he said finally, his voice low and intense, I realized something I've been denying since the moment I marked you. Maya waited, her heart quickening at the rare vulnerability in his expression. I marked you because my wolf recognized what you are, Dominic continued. But I choose to stand beside you now because of who you are, your courage, your compassion, your strength. The marking bond may have brought us together, but it isn't what keeps me at your side. The simple honesty of his words touched Maya deeply. This man who commanded hundreds with a word, who had lived his life in service to duty and responsibility, was offering something far more personal than allegiance. When Blake rejected me, I thought my chance at belonging had ended, Maya admitted. I never imagined finding something truer, stronger. Dominic's hand rose to cup her cheek, the tenderness of the gesture, belying his usual stern demeanor. We face an uncertain future, challenges greater than either of us has known. But we face them together, Alpha King and Heartkeeper, Dominic and Maya. Beyond the fortress walls, the Montana wilderness stretched to the horizon, bathed in morning light. Somewhere in those forests, packs were gathering, sharing news of the awakened Heartkeeper, of the hope that had been absent for generations. The blood curse that had weakened their kind for centuries might finally be broken, not through violence or power, but through healing and connection. Maya turned her gaze toward the distant mountains where the second blood moon would rise in 1 month's time. The path ahead was uncertain, filled with challenges she was only beginning to understand. Yet for the first time in her life, she felt complete, not because someone else had filled what she lacked, but because she had discovered what lay dormant within her all along. The marking on her throat pulsed warmly, a constant reminder of the bond she shared with Dominic. But beyond that physical connection, a deeper understanding had formed between them, one based on mutual respect, on shared purpose, on the recognition of complementary strengths. Together, she agreed, taking his hand as they looked out toward their future. The word was both promise and prophecy, a bond as ancient and enduring as the moon itself.